So, hello everyone. I'm Geoffrey Kasanagi, the CEO at Asante Africa Foundation, and thank you for making the decision to join us in today's discussion, whereby we are looking at this Earth Day panel discussion. Just to give you a brief about Asante Africa, is that for the last 18 years, Asante Africa Foundation has been alive to the challenges of the young people in remote, hard-to-reach communities of East Africa. And it has also remained true to its promise to the young people by co-creating and designing impactful programs that create opportunity and equip the young people with the right knowledge and skills that address the life's challenges, catalyzing positive change and also enabling the young people to thrive in the global economy. Over the years, through our programs, we have reached over 300,000 lives directly and have reached 1.5 million lives cumulatively and directly impacting 522 communities in East Africa. Our programs are well aligned with local, regional, and global causes as the national development plans for the countries where we work, the EU Agenda 2063, the SDGs, and the Pact of the Future. With this alignment, we are able to divulge ourselves from the silo mentality, accelerate collaborations, encourage youth participation, innovation and learning, explore models and partnerships to leverage the ever increasingly lean resources and maximize impact. In today's Earth Day panel discussion, you will hear inspiring global insights on youth, education, and climate leadership from the exciting hands-on experienced panelists and as they dissect today's theme, which is cultivating green minds, transforming education to empower youth-led sustainability. With that, I wish you the best of your time on this panel. I'm handing over to Georgina to introduce our panelists for today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoffrey. A good evening to everyone. It's amazing to have you here today with us this evening, and we look forward to having a deliberate and fruitful discussion as we play our part in commemorating the Earth Month, as we also head towards celebrating the Earth Day that will be held on 22nd April. And you should be knowing that we'll be making 55 years this year in commemorating this day, which was started with the sole aim of mobilizing people to fight together and also share ideas and see how we get to discuss critical environmental issues with the sole aim of protecting Mother Earth. Today, among the two things we are urged to do this year, it's to continue living sustainably, but also to empower the youth. And us at Asante Africa, where I happen to be a board member for the Ugandan team, we are here today to air out our concerns, share our thoughts, our ideas, but not as Asante, but through the youth whose lives we've impacted. We have an alumni with us, a direct beneficiary, and a young policymaker, one who has addressed several global stages in his young career. So without further ado, permit me to introduce to you Howard Mwesigwa, a young lawyer from Uganda, a climate action champion. And after Howard introduces himself, we will also give the floor to Monica, an amazing lady from Nairobi, Kenya, who is an entrepreneur, an agripreneur, and also has a non-profit that advocates for climate change and more environmental conservation. I will not say much. I will let Howard introduce himself in 2 minutes, and then I'll give the floor to Monica to introduce herself in 2 minutes. And without further ado, I just want to let you know today I'll be the moderator for the session. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Georgina. And thank you so much to the team for having me. I am deeply, deeply humbled for the invitation to join you as we commemorate Earth Day 2025. My name, as introduced, is Howard Mesigwa, and I'm a lawyer by professional training. And my inclination is to energy, environment, and climate change law and policy. I have the very humbling privilege of serving in a number of capacities. I am the team leader and founder of the Climate Action Leadership Incubator Uganda, which is a youth-led organization here in Uganda that seeks to nurture the next generation of climate leaders by equipping them with the knowledge, the skills, the resources they need to champion climate action in their communities, to address as well the triple planetary crisis, as we call it, which is climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. But I'm also the team leader of the Energy, Environment, and Sustainability Department at Kalukumtima and Company Advocates, one of the premier law firms here in Uganda. Also the board chairperson for the European Union Youth Sounding Board and the current presiding speaker of the National Environment Parliament here in Uganda. I'm also the global focal point for the Africa Youth Climate Action Plan and Yango, and Yango is the official children and youth constituency to the UNFCCC. I'm a climate finance fellow with the Africa Youth Climate Finance Fellowship. And I am deeply, deeply committed to meaningful youth engagement, especially in climate action, because here in Uganda, young people constitute 78% of the population. So if we engage 78% of the population, then we're engaging majority, but also keeping an eye to intergenerational equity and solidarity. Also committed to contributing my part to a greener, just, and equitable world. And I really look forward to the discussions this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Howard. Monica, we shall hear from you as well. And Pascal, if you're ready as well. Monica, please take the floor. Kindly unmute, Monica.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Monica Siano Intaya from Narok, Kenya, the CEO of Nighttown Youth Empowerment and Santa Africa Alumni. And I come from Narok, a place rich in culture, land, and resilient. But I've also seen the environment keep changing. That is, rivers running dry, forests disappearing, and also the youth are wondering about the future. And through Santa Africa, I learn about leadership, and that leadership is not all about just leading, but it begins with action. And that's why I started an organization that is called Nighttown Youth Empowerment, in order to mobilize the youth to protect the environment, and also to build a movement of young people who trust in the sustainable change. And today I'm here to remind you that the youth are not just the voice of the future, but we are the power of now. And together we can change our environment and protect our planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monica. So we will get straight to the questions as Pascal joins us. In the meantime, Howard, I will start with you. You've given us a very amazing CV. I must say I'm honored to have watched you virtually make that progress. Well done. And we appreciate the amazing work you do in representing the youth and making sure our voices are heard. Given that you're in the arena of policy making, influencing policies, I just want to ask you, in light of what we are about to discuss today, cultivating green minds, by using education as a tool to do that, do you think there is need to reform the current policies? The National Development Plan was passed recently this week in Uganda. For policies, do you think there is need to revise them or to formulate new ones and ensure that these new policies pave a way for issues like sustainability to be taught to children from a young age, for it to be part of them, for them to grow up and be aware, mentally aware about sustainability issues not just in the classroom to cram for the exam, but even in their day-to-day life and even when they start working? Do you think there is need to revise policies to enforce that from your experiences, from your experiences? Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Georgina. So to answer your question and to put it in the right context, I need to allude to the 5 major pillars of the UNFCCC. And the UNFCCC is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So there's so many smaller facets, but the foundational features and pillars about 5. So the first one is climate change mitigation, and then climate change adaptation, and then climate finance, and then technology transfer and development, and then the last one is capacity building. So you realize that all these preceding 4 they have a critical component within them of capacity building or of awareness creation or on knowledge sharing and dissemination of information, right? Because for us to undertake mitigation effectively, we need people to understand what mitigation strategies they can employ. Even adaptation, even climate finance, we need to understand what is the global architecture like, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, how do we overcome them, how do we help global south countries like Uganda overcome those challenges and then access climate finance, technology development and transfer. All of that needs a lot of capacity building, which is now education is a cross-cutting issue or aspect. And when you look at Article 6 of the UNFCCC, it really lays the ground clear for the imperative behind awareness creation and capacity building, especially because letting people know that there is an imperative, the climate imperative, and what they can do about it is the foundation for meaningful engagement of communities, especially those that are at the very forefront of the climate crisis. But when you look at Article 12 then of the Paris Agreement, which really draws from Article 6 of the UNFCCC, it sort of buttresses the point that states that are parties to the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement need to embed
Hello, Howard? Hello. I think we lost Howard. What? I don't know if you can hear me, but I think your network is not good. Maybe you want to get into a place with a better network that is more stable.
Sharing and awareness creating that they are. And when you look at the commitments that
Hello, Howard. Oh, so apologies. I think Howard has unstable network, something not very unusual, something usual for our beloved Africa, but we shall get there. Monica, as we wait for Howard to rejoin, building on to what he was talking about, the climate mitigation, the technology transfer, and issues to do with capacity building in these international treaties that were signed to enforce climate change and ensure that we live sustainably. You narrated to me earlier that you are into advocacy, teaching communities, climate resilience approaches, climate smart agriculture practices. Drawing on your experience as an innovator, an entrepreneur who advocates for climate resilience, climate smart agriculture practices, do you think you need the backup of government to strengthen your cause? Do you need them to draft laws to give you more strength in your cause as you go out to teach these communities? Do you think you need more help as you teach these communities how to start using this, let's say, for example, climate smart agriculture practices in their farming? Do you think there is need for a law to be drafted and enacted and make the community start embracing these practices? Howard, I shall get back to you after Monica. Sorry about your network. Monica, do you think you need the backup of government, maybe like a law, to help you in this fight, in this great cause you're fighting for? Please draw from your experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And according to the question, the law is needed, and it should be passed that everyone who is doing any kind of the business should be practicing it in a sustainable way, because you see now the climate change is vital, like it is affecting especially those marginalized people. So I see that a law should be passed and every business should be operate under the law, because when it is passed, I think it will not only ensure the responsible production and the resource use, but it can also prepare our economy in a long-term resilience, which will help us, and it will also ensure that everyone is accountable in every impact he or she makes to the environment. So that will keep everyone accountable, and you will be sure that when I do this, maybe there will be a fine on this. So you will be that protecting, like you will be protective about the environment. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Monica. And just one final question. As you encourage these farmers to adopt these climate smart agriculture practices to promote sustainability while doing farming, how do you ensure that they are accountable, that they actually still do what you have taught them, they practice what you have taught them, and not just for a short time, but long term? In the absence of the law, what trick do you use to drive them to keep doing what you want them to do, what you teach them to do? Can you share
Okay.
like some insights from how you teach them and how you make sure? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, on that, what I always do is when maybe we organize the tree plantings programs or any other program that deals with climate change, I always engage the community to make sure that they are part of the decision making, and everything that we are going to do, they are well informed and even involved. And then after that, we also make a follow up to see maybe if you when we plant trees in a certain place, we make a follow up and make sure that they are well protected, and we also encourage them that they should be doing that. And because when you also create an awareness, that will also bring them on board, and they will feel like they are part of the progress. So we work it together. You can't just work it alone. So we always keep informed the leaders, the government, and also the community. Yeah, and we
Thank you
also
so much.
capacity build them on any matter they need. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Monica. Howard, we will go back to you. Hope you have better network. Are you with us, Howard?
Yes, I am. Sorry, Georgina, I had an incoming call that sort of destabilized my network, but I'm fully present now.
Thank you so much. Howard, so you kindly proceed and continue to explain to us as you were saying, to respond to your
Yes.
question about the policies, if we have
Mm,
some policies in place and
mm,
if they should be revised to
mm.
ensure that we bring up a generation that is aware about all
Mm.
these issues, yes, and
Oh,
implement them
okay.
in their day-to-day life. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay. Great. So as I had earlier mentioned, Article 6 of UNFCCC and Article 2 of the Paris Agreement really speak to the imperative behind climate change education and awareness creation, including dissemination of information to communities to be able to help them understand the climate crisis, but the causes and the consequences, but also how they can contribute to solutions. And that's very important. So you find that that invitation is then domesticated. For example, here in Uganda, we have the National Climate Change Act, which is of 2021. That's Chapter 182 of our laws, but also the National Environment Act, Chapter 181 of our laws, and then the National Climate Change Policy of 2015, all of which have provisions that speak to climate change education, and even the National Environment Act makes it an obligation on the state of government to undertake environmental education. One of the famous sayings from Mandela was that education is the most potent tool that one can use to change the world. So you find that there's such a knowledge gap here in Uganda, but also it's the same issue I've seen across Africa. There's a knowledge gap. So the problem might not even be with the robustness of the policies. The problem usually is with the ignorance of the policies, or the ignorance among people of the existence and the import and the provisions of these policies. Many times these policies actually have safety valves for local communities, for vulnerable demographic groups, but they themselves don't even know they have those safety valves. So for me, I don't think that the problem is to do with the robustness of these policies. We actually have very good policies. I've seen here in Uganda. I've also done some comparative studies across the region, in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Tanzania, in Ghana, in Nigeria, and South Africa. I've done a comparative, and we have very good laws and policies. The challenge usually is to do with the implementation. So I think what needs to be done is for the scaling of the efforts and initiatives when it comes to engaging children and youth, but also local communities, for them to understand the climate crisis, but also how they can contribute solutions. And that is really where we come in, and as the Climate Action Leadership Incubator, what we do, we get often complex climate change concepts and break them down to the point that with the children, we actually engage them in music, dance, drama, and poetry, where we co-create with them. If you check, for example, my socials or the socials of the Climate Action Leadership Incubator, you will see last month we were in Bale with the Eastern Climate Action Incubation Series. And then just this weekend, last weekend on Saturday, we were in Barara. And then on the second weekend of May, we're going to be in Northern Uganda, in Gulu. So what we do, we break down these concepts. We even have negotiators training. So for young people who are between 16 and 35, where for them, then we actually get to engage them more meaningfully in the complex aspects. So we get to explain them, but also get to co-create with them some of these solutions. And for us, that is important because we know that this information many a time is forbidding, it's complex. And so there's need to break it down. And sometimes we say government should do it, but honestly, government cannot do everything. And I've come to the understanding that whereas we always say government should do this, government should do this, government should do this, should do that, many a time government does not have the capacity, does not have the resources, and yet some of the gaps that exist, we can be able to fill those by mobilizing resources, both in terms of human resource, but also in terms of financial resources, to be able to cover those gaps as we, of course, continuously do advocacy work, some of the work that we do to ensure that there's a mainstreaming of climate change education or environmental sustainability education in the education system. And you'll be impressed to find that already government is doing some work, truth be told. Government is doing some work, especially when you find that in schools, they now have modules on climate change. It's not that comprehensive, but I think we have a foundation that we can be able to build upon to enhance the mainstreaming of climate change in our curriculum. But also the other thing that I'm really passionate about, and something we're doing at the Climate Action Leadership Incubator, we're coming up with knowledge resources, toolkits for children and youth in climate action. And we are exploring avenues, mobilizing resources to see how we can even interpret some of these toolkits into local languages that are prevalent in the different regions in northern Uganda, in western Uganda, in eastern Uganda, and even here in central in Kampala and the metropolitan areas. So I'm convinced that what we need to do is to look at the implementation aspect, because we have the laws on paper. In Uganda, we have some of the best laws, but the problem is always with the implementation. And yet that's the most important aspect of policy, because it makes no sense having a good policy, but it's not being implemented, because what we want to achieve out of the policy will come through very deliberate, strategic, and consistent or intentional enforcement and implementation of these policies. As I have mentioned, here in Uganda, we have the laws, we have the policies, but the gap really is with implementation. And that's where we come in, but also we rally many more stakeholders to come on board, because the work that needs to be done is quite a great deal. Thank you, Georgina.
Thank you so much, Howard. And just to sum up your meaningful contribution and response, for schools, in addition to the amazing advocacy you're doing, some youths hear the word sustainability. They don't even understand what it means, right? Do you think we should go ahead to incorporate this amazing information in your toolkits that you're developing into the curriculum for them to probably study it and understand it, just like we studied global warming as a cause back in P6 in social studies? Do you think there is need, if it's not at primary school level, but in high school or at university level? For example, in law school, if you're studying about, let me give an example of, I'm trying to look for a policy I could use. Let's say before you give a contract to someone to sell to you something, they teach you that they should comply with some they should comply with some minimum standards of sustainability. Do you think there is need to incorporate these concepts into the curriculum from your experience, in addition to the advocacy you're doing? Because you'll come 2 days, 1 week, kids will be excited. 3 months later, they've moved on, they're cramming for the next subject. So what would you think there is need to have
Of course.
this? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there is need. There is need, as I mentioned, there's need to mainstream climate change education, of course, climate change, environmental sustainability education in the education system. And so the toolkits actually that we are coming up with as advocacy documents, yes, they're knowledge material, but they're also sort of benchmarks for the mainstreaming of green education in our curriculum. So we use those toolkits, and we hope to use those toolkits to undertake sort of stakeholder engagement, especially because now we are in the earlier stages of engaging the Ministry of Education and Sports, but also the different actors along with the schools, for example, because they're organized. Here in Uganda, we have the National Youth Council, the Uganda National Students Association. So looking at some of those youth structures, and that's how actually we're able to mobilize in our regions when we reach out to these schools. So because the curriculum is like the blueprint for education in the country, it's important for us to be intentional about mainstreaming environmental sustainability education in the curriculum to sort of have a structure of how this can be done. Yes.
Thank you so much, Howard. Howard, we have a question for you. By the way, now we've entered into the Q&A. So for my beloved audience, please, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. For our panelists, they're happy to answer them. And Howard, I have a question for you. You could repeat it. I think you already answered it. Someone asked you, what is the current policy in place? I would give Uganda because it's your base. And what do you hope the changed policy will be like? I believe that if there is a policy already in place, what do you hope the revised version will be like? That's the question for you, Howard. Hello? Monica, do you want to respond as Howard's internet stabilizes? Do you know any policy in place in Nairobi? In Kenya? Sorry. Hello, Monica, are you there? Do you know any policies in place in Kenya for environment or climate? Are there any in Kenya?
Yes, they are.
Or you can give us just an example of
One
one.
policy. There is Climate Change Act of 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you had a look at that law? Yes. Do you think it's okay? We don't need to change anything in it. It's okay. It's sufficient.
I think it's somehow it is okay, but sometimes the implementation part, or us as the individual, we need to be like, we follow it, because now the policy might be implemented, but as an individual you are not even working on it. It is just there. So as an individual, it's your time now to do what the policy say, and make sure that you are following it, doing it at the right time, at the right place, to make sure that climate change mitigation is being handled, and even that adaptation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Monica. Geoffrey, I have a question for you as well. Someone in the audience asked, I have been teaching in environmental ethics at the university for 3 years. My experience shows that there is serious need to impart green mindset awareness among university youths. Does Asante Africa have any plans to introduce awareness? Does Asante Africa have any plans to introduce awareness programs in universities to spark more changes, especially in Tanzania? Thank you, Geoffrey. That's for you.
Thank you so much, moderator, and thank you for the good question that is coming from the audience. The question that is being asked, Asante Africa prepares the young people to address even challenges that we ourselves we may not foresee. And we offer this through age-appropriate content and also implementation strategies. So in this, we have programs that target young people as early as 9 to 14. And we also have programs that are targeting ages 15 to 24, where we believe the category of the university student usually falls. But away from that, even those ones who have participated in our programs earlier before joining university, they are encouraged to take on paid forward activities. So I really believe that even in the university, there are some informal groups that are already running as movements towards creating the change that we desire to see within the universities. So Asante Africa is already present in these universities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. And even just today, we're already doing that. We are engaging the youth and understanding how they are driving change through their different initiatives. So, Monica, I have another question for you from the audience. Someone says, it sounds like it was important to frame sustainability as a solution to recognized challenges. What advice do you have for others on how to do that? So draw from your experience as an entrepreneur, as someone who teaches about climate smart practices. For you to teach them that you saw there was need for sustainability as a solution to address these challenges of maybe probably dry soils, dry weather for the agriculture, and you had to teach these climate smart resilience practices. So what advice do you have for others to come up with such solutions, like as you came up with sustainability as a solution to this challenge? What advice do you have for others on how to think about this like you did? What did you do to get there? What do you think they should do to do what you're doing? What did you do to do that? Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think the first thing is you just believe in yourself and know what you are doing, have the purpose. Like after that, you also need to find some mentors, because they will guide you. It's not that easy to start a project, because sometimes it needs facilitation, it needs a lot of things. So for the innovators, just believe in yourself, and whenever you have a dream or an idea, make sure you turn your idea into an impact, because when you just assume it can't help us, but use your idea to solve the problem. And when it comes to sustainability, you just need to look around and see what's not going on, because we have a lot of things in the environment. And also, you just have to look for a problem and find a way to to bridge it, like to provide a solution on it.
Thank you so much, Monica. A final question. Someone asked, what are your thoughts on how the private sector can play a role in influencing education systems, more so content on sustainability? And it appears this was, I think, addressed to me, but to respond from my experience, given my current presence in Switzerland, where I'm based at the moment, and having worked in East Africa and being an East African youth. These days, the private sector is coming up with very amazing softwares as solutions to such challenges. Some of them are aimed at capacity building to engage the youth and the general public as a whole to learn about sustainability. What the private sector in most cases comes up with is the financial muscle, because Howard already noted that government can't do everything. They don't have the resources in Africa, which is true. But private sector happens to have the financial muscle in most cases. So I think how I would respond to this, how would private sector play a role? They could play this role by availing resources to schools in in rural areas, to give access to youths and children that don't have access to such advanced technologies, to get access to platforms and access small courses on sustainability. The UNITAR, the United Nations Institute on Training and Research, it also happens to have short courses, but to access this, you need internet. So the private sector could come in and avail such resources, probably computers or laptops for the youths to access these courses, but also the finance for internet, probably cover the internet for the youth to study about this in their free time on computers in the computer lab. I'm giving a very, very practical example for the communities that Asante assists, to see how we can engage them, how private sector can engage them to get to learn about these issues as we wait for government to revise and mainstream issues to do with sustainability in the main curriculum. That's what I would answer. And also to work in partnership with organizations, youth-led organizations, to foster this drive, this change, this campaign. Yes, that's how I would answer to that. Then this is for Howard, who I think hasn't yet rejoined because of network issues. I will first
Regina,
pause on.
I'm back on.
Oh, you're back, Howard. Oh, perfect, amazing. Someone asks that, I believe the legislation is enough. How then and what can youth do to unpack the environmental protection laws and regulations and widen knowledge within grassroots communities? Do you need me to repeat the question?
Oh yes, please do for me, Georgina.
Okay, so the person says, I believe the legislation is enough. And they go ahead to say, how then and what can youth do to unpack the environmental protection laws and regulations and widen knowledge within grassroots communities? Thank you.
Okay, great. So I agree with that person and their opinion entirely, that the laws, especially from where I am in Uganda, the laws are good enough. We have the National Climate Change Policy of 2015. We have the National Environment Act of 2019, the National Climate Change National Environment Act of 2019, National Climate Change Act of 2021. So we have the laws and they're very robust and progressive. But the problem is on the implementation, and the gap there, as I mentioned, is to do with a knowledge gap. People not even understanding what the imports or the provisions or the safety valves that they, that are embedded in these laws. So I think young people like myself and yourself, Georgina, and the rest of the team at Asante need to understand that we have a moral obligation to bring on board as many more young people as we can. And for me, that is what drives me in the work that I do with the Climate Action Leadership Incubator. The idea that I've been privileged enough to access this information and to be part of these conversations, both at the local and the global level, but also be part of some spaces that ideally many people would not access, then I become that capillary to share those insights, to share that knowledge with many more young people, especially those who are at the grassroots level. And that's very important. So the obligation then we have in disseminating this information at the local level is to ensure that we translate this information, which many a time is couched in very complex concepts, to then break it down to language that can easily be understood and comprehended and appreciated by these local communities, to the extent that we can explore avenues of having this information translated into local languages. And that's very important, because some of these concepts cannot make sense until we get people to relate with them, to understand that some of the challenges they're facing are actually as a result of climate change. To a point where you explain to a local smallholder farmer that, by the way, you used to know that you had two peak seasons for the dry season and the rainy season, and you knew when to plant, when to harvest, and now you do not know. And that shift in those in those weather patterns is actually called climate change. But also when you experience the long spells of the drought, or when it rains and it's just flooding, then those extreme weather events are as a result of climate change. Or when you are able to grow your crops, but then your crops fail. If you used to harvest 5 tons, now you're harvesting only 1 or 2. That crop failure then leading to food insecurity is as a result of climate change. Getting to break down these concepts into language that can easily be understood, I think it's the obligation we have to do. We need to mobilize resources. We need to invest in ourselves, understand these concepts even much better, so we can relay them better to our fellow young people in the local communities that might not have access to some of the opportunities that we have had access to. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Howard. Pascal, are you with us? Please say hello for me to confirm you're with us.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Pascal.
Yes, I'm with you.
Thank you, Pascal. Please, in 1 minute or 2, tell
Yes.
us about yourself briefly, and then I'll ask you one
My
question
name,
and we close. Thank you.
my name is Aiswa Pasco, a student of Nyankwan's High School, Form 5. I run a business of plastic recycling.
Yes, Pascal, what brings you to this panel today? What's different about you? What's special? Hello? Pascal, are you there?
Hello.
Can you
I'm
hear me?
there, but I'm getting you like you are off.
Okay.
Yes, as for now, I'm getting you.
Thank you so much. Please tell us about yourself and why you're here today. What you do, your activities that you do. Tell us about that and why you're here today. Pascal, did you get me? Hello?
No?
Pascal,
Hello.
can you tell us why you are here today? Why you are on the panel today?
I'm
Would you
here
like to
today
say
to talk.
something?
I'm here today to talk about my business, how it is promoting environmental sustainability.
In 1 minute, tell us about that business. What do you do?
My business, I recycle plastics, and I get products like key holders, aquariums, fountain, and flower vessels through recycling plastics.
Okay,
That
thank
is
you.
what I do.
Thank you, Pascal. And where did you learn this from? Did you learn it from school? How did you learn to do this at your young age?
I learn it by using social media with the help of teacher mentor, more especially WhatsApp and YouTube and other social media platforms.
Okay, do you think there is need to teach your fellow classmates who do not have access to YouTube? Do you think they should be taught to do such businesses in class, or they should only use social media? What do you think? Do you think they should be taught in class, or they should only engage on social media to learn about such
Yes,
businesses?
madam. Yes, madam. They should be taught in class so that they acquire enough skills.
Okay. So in addition to social media, you also think they should be taught in class how to recycle plastic
Yes, madam.
and not contaminate the environment?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Pascal is one of our beneficiaries in Asante Africa, and it's amazing that we've managed to have him join us to share his experience. He recycles plastics, and at his young age, it's amazing, given that he's based in the rural areas with challenges of accessing social media with data and the like and tech. But the fact that he is resilient enough to source this knowledge and put it into practice. So we invited him to showcase what he does, but also to show the world that we have many Pascals. We just need to uplift more Pascals in this fight and campaign towards enforcing, better policies and practices to conserve our environment and mitigate the effects of climate change that are already happening. I will now invite Howard to give us his closing remarks in 2 minutes. And then Monica, prepare yourself to give us your closing remarks in 2 minutes. Pasco, you'll be the last to give us your closing remarks in 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much, Georgina, and thank you so much to the team at Asante for having me. So my closing remarks is really a call to action, honestly. We have a lot of work to do. Every time I go to the different parts of Uganda, for instance, to engage with the local communities, I feel such a deep hunger within me to do better, to do more, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But also because, you see, environmental sustainability and climate change, the concepts are ever evolving. There's new research coming out every single day. You find that there are new reports every other time, with different findings. I know the mandated body in that regard is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, for instance, in the different assessment reports. Now we're getting into assessment report number 7. But there's so many, even the UN, United Nations Environment Program, many of the development partners, the EU, that I have the privilege of serving as the chairperson of the board here in Uganda. There's a lot of research going on, but that challenge I've seen is that much of that research is not being undertaken by African minds. It's not being undertaken by Ugandan minds, for example, or young people who have lived experiences. So you find the experts sitting somewhere in New York, and they are, producing reports about the state of climate change in Uganda, right? And I mean, where are the Ugandan voices in this? And that's very important, right? So they need to empower local voices that are on the ground, that are actually experiencing the climate crisis, and amplifying that voice at the international level, where decisions on funding, on finance, on support, on policy, international policy are actually made is very, very important. So my commitment is to enhance the work that I'm doing, but also to keep the conversation going, to amplify the voice of the communities that I engage with, to ensure that we're able to attract the support that they need, but also continue empowering them with this information, with this knowledge, to see that we are able to bring them on board, not just as beneficiaries, but as meaningful contributors. And this year, of course, the Earth Day theme is, our power, the power of the planet as well. So looking at how and the role of renewable energy in addressing the climate crisis. As you might know already, the climate crisis, about 70% of it comes from the energy we are consuming, especially our addiction to fossil fuels. And here in Uganda, it's a very slippery conversation. It's a very fragile conversation, because government policy is pro-fossil fuels, even when you look at our energy transition plan. So they need to empower voices like mine that want to counter some of those narratives, some of those myths around the energy transition and around climate justice. It's very important. Thank you so much, Georgina.
Thank you so much, Howard. Monica, we shall hear from you in 2 minutes. Your closing remarks, your commitment, or your message, that you leave with us today.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate the great opportunity I had, the discussion. And for me, I think the Earth Month matters a lot because it reminds us that we are not separated from the Earth. We are part of it. So as an individual, we should rise as caretakers, but not just as consumers. And to my fellow youth, I want to assure you that your voice matters and your local action matters at the global stage. And also for the potential partners and sponsors, investing in the grassroots movements and young people movement is like it just means that you are failing on the long-lasting impact. So I just want to leave you a message that wherever you are, just encourage and make awareness on sustainability. Let's make it essential, but not just like as an option, because we need to start thinking of it now and make sure that we are doing whatever is right for the betterness of our future. So for me, I just thank you all and let's empower the communities, let's empower the women and even the youth to practice on smart agriculture, the organic agriculture, and make sure that sustainable change is being met, the goals, everything that do with it. And for that, I think we will protect our planet together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monica. It has been lovely and amazing to have you with us, hear from you. And I love Narok. The internet was just perfect. I should move there. You stayed with us through it all. That was amazing. Pascal, in 1 minute, please give us your closing remark, if you can hear me.
Okay,
Say
thank you,
something
Madam
nice
Speaker.
to us. Yes, you're welcome.
As I conclude, Madam, I'd like to thank the judging panel for the fantastic work that you have done. In my closing remarks, the words that I can say, I request for the investors, if they have any support that they can deliver to us younger people, so that we can continue or we can go ahead to save plastics, because these plastics are the main cause of global. So, Madam, I request everyone who has managed to attend the panel today to support youth so that we can save our environment and our countries where we live. So, with those few remarks, I will stop from here. And I thank everyone who has managed to attend. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much, Pascal. Thank you, everyone that was part of today, who has enabled us to make it a success. And I will close by saying it starts with you at home. When you're trashing this rubbish, separate it, plastics alone, paper alone, decompost rubbish alone. That's how you start. As we also get into these intellectual spaces and conversations, and also as you do your work back on your table or your laptop, have it at the back of your mind. What am I doing that is sustainable? What practice is sustainable that I'm doing in my work? When you're buying something from a supplier in an organization, do they comply with minimum sustainability requirements? You, as someone who goes to a supermarket or shop, do you buy something that is compliant? Do you take time to read on the label? It starts with you, because if it starts with you as a person, with time, the whole world will be influenced, will change, and things will be better. I draw this from experience living in a country that has greatly tried on a scale of 100%, 80% to implement these policies and standards, right from how you trash, how you walk, what you do, the technology used in the public transport systems we have and the rules and regulations on what should be brought into the country or not, that strictness and strict enforcement and implementation that has managed to get into the brains of the citizens who live there to live more consciously and enable them to conserve the environment in whatever they do in their day-to-day lives and the work they do. Yes, so I'll end the webinar by saying that, and I wish you a lovely evening, a happy Earth Day next week, and happy Easter holidays. We appreciate your time and have enjoyed having you with us. For our panelists, thank you for taking off time to be with us, share your amazing knowledge. We hope to hear more from you, work with you in the future. Please get in touch with them. Howard Mwesibwa is on LinkedIn. I believe Monica is as well. Pascal is still in school, but let's draw interest in young people like Pascal who are doing amazing things to conserve the environment. I will end there. The webinar has been closed. Thank you. And for Asante Africa, feel free to connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, support our causes, partner with us, invest in our youth, in our alumni, and our beneficiaries. We loved having you with us. Have a great evening. Thank you.